Seriously? Maybe that's why. Hold on. That might be better. All right. Let's see. Trying to get Gamma Strike open here. Got a ton of fucking news this weekend. If Greenland is invaded, you mean if the US goes to war with Europe? I don't think that's going to happen. It's kind of a moot point. Trump's just doing what Trump does, which is throw shit against the wall to see what he can get away with. Jesus Christ. It's like he hasn't shut up all weekend. So, what weekend news matters? That's a good question. Probably the $200 billion mortgage bond purchase directed to Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac. Um, that might have some effect in bringing mortgage rates down a little bit and kickstart some home buying, but probably not a substantial move. I mean, it's not that much money. And those are long-term debt, so I highly doubt it's going to drive the 30-year down substantially or anything. This is kind of interesting. 55 billion in US corporate bonds migrated from investment grade to junk in 2025, with only 10 billion in moving up to high grade. Broad measures of indebtedness are creeping higher relative to earnings, fueled by rising yields after the pandemic, a flood of spending on artificial intelligence and acquisitions. If you look underneath the hood, there are underlying signs of weakening in credit profiles, says Zachary Griffiths, head of U.S. investment grade and macro strategy at Credit Sites. We do have a little bump from some of the new like big beautiful bill tax cuts coming in. But we've got, I don't know, we've got a lot of uncertainty, right? Trump's gone so far this weekend. Trump's gone after Greenland, Cuba, Mexico, and Iran. Iran's now shooting protesters in the street. So probably some joint operation with Israel against Iran. Kurdish forces attacked Syrian forces. Power in Kiev was shut off due to the latest Russian air attack. Jesus Christ. Oh, Trump announced a cap on credit card. He's calling for a cap on credit card rates at interest rates at 10%, which sounds like fucking horse shit. So either banks will agree to do it, which they don't have to do, and they'll cut everyone's credit limits down to nothing, or banks will just tell Trump to go fuck himself because the president can't really cap interest rates on credit cards. He has zero fucking power to do that. Basant said that the Treasury has enough funds to pay any tariff refunds if the Supreme Court rules against the that's Wednesday, right? Jesus fucking Christ. There's so much shit. Oh, Trump declared a state of emergency so that he could more efficiently embezzle funds out of Venezuela. U.S. bank deposits fell by like 100 billion. Hmm. He's really trying to bolt the Venezuelan economy onto the U.S. economy, and that sounds not so great. Um, U.S. budget deficit was 143 billion, the CBO estimate. And that was what, Friday? Yeah, which doesn't seem fucking great either. So yeah, there's quite a lot going on. We're talking about refilling the SPR with Venezuelan oil. Germany's getting pretty fucking riled up about threats to Greenland. The market won't know how to digest all of this. That's true. Yeah. There's going to be a lot of mispricing, which usually leads to a lot of volatility. This is kind of what happened with the tariffs. Like, nobody knew what the fuck was going on, so everybody just sold and freaked out. Because there was no, like, single thread of a narrative that could be followed to any conclusion. Probably going to find out that Russia left behind a couple nukes in Cuba. Oil needs to be worth more to make Venezuela viable. Venezuelan oil needs to be worth more to make Venezuela viable. Nobody's gonna invest $100 fucking billion into Venezuela to like get their dirty fucking crude out of the ground. That's the problem. It's an unstable situation with no certain outcome, and no oil companies are going to want to go in there and spend a fuck ton of money, especially after they got ripped off last time. So Trump's trying to promise oil companies he's going to make them whole on their last Venezuelan investment if they'll start investing in it again, basically. But he doesn't have any ability to do that. Like, Venezuela is not part of the U.S. It doesn't matter how many executive orders he issues. He's not Congress. And then Congress's ACA credits got extended by Congress, but that might mean a jump in healthcare stocks. So all the healthcare stocks that have been getting the shit beat out of them, that might be a positive for those. Pretty much anything in this sector. Now it's going to the Senate, and obviously the Senate still has to pass it, but I think that, like, what was it, like 11 Republicans or something flip sides to vote for the extension. Turns out constituents might not like 600% bumps in their monthly insurance premiums. Shocker. Oh, and then, internal civil strife within the US due to the, like, ICE shooting last week, which is probably going to lead to, uh, well, at least more rampant protests. You know who doesn't like protesting? Ratings agencies. So, ratings agencies probably also don't like the US tacking on a bunch of fucking dog shit emerging market debt onto their economy either. But here we are. Dollar's up. Oh, as of Friday. Bitcoin got a tiny little bump over the weekend. Shit. I mean, the more geopolitical tensions increase, the more oil prices are going to go up. Gold, silver, other precious metals. It's just how it works. Yeah, no problem. So commodities look like they're probably ready to break higher. Ooh, much higher? Huh. I still think the beneficiaries of that are likely to be like, nope. NOV's still pretty elevated since the Venezuelan invasion. Mm, Schlumberger is still up. Ow. Yep. Kinder Morgan. Mm, actually, not doing as well. Interesting. I guess they're already trading at like 22x. A sea of red, you're truly a beacon of green. May your seed be fertile and your portfolio be diverse yet vibrant. Looking forward to the Pickle Jar convention at Disney World in April. Will we play mini golf? Do they have mini golf at Disney World? Oh, what's going on with AMD? Maybe. I don't know. AMD looks like it's set up to fail. I'd have to look at the options data on it. Ooh, yeah. AMD slipped below gamma neutral here. Delta's falling off. There's room to move down to like 190 locally. Not a lot of Delta support, so you go down to like 180. So pretty much anything under 200, not great. I don't really know if it's set up to bounce here. Was there any news for it over the weekend? Yeah, I mean I would confirm. Although arguably the confirm was back at like 210. It was like 180 or 145 to the downside is possible. 145 would be a lot grindier, but 190 to 180 seems pretty easy. How skew. Hmm. Still not a lot of still not a lot of pit buying. Hmm. Hmm. Probably want to see H. Actually, yeah. I mean, selling on the 30-day calls is pretty incentivized right now. There's a huge amount of return premium there. Talk of a Qatari buyout. For Manchester United? Why do you want to invest in a publicly traded fucking soccer franchise? Gross. So you just want to buy a football club with negative net margins in the hopes that some rich Saudis want to buy it as a means to grant citizenship to their relatives. Oh, fucking Christ. Yeah, I'm sure it'll squeeze if somebody buys it out, but like, it's just speculation. Gonna buy the Qatari buyout rumor and then hopefully sell before the news. We're making a comeback. Not this year. There hasn't been any net margin since the beginning of 2025. And quarter one reported for 2023 like a few days ago, and it was fucking negative 4.73%. I mean, if someone buys it, they're not buying it because it's profitable. Looks like there's not a lot of interest out for like the next 15 days or so. A lot of weekly contract trading on it. Going through a rough patch. All right. Well, I mean, I'm just saying. Netflix, if you haven't done so already. Yeah, we could check out Netflix. I don't even have Manchester United on here, so I can't give you any options information. Netflix still looks kind of like dog shit, but it might be getting to a price where it'll start recovering. 81's the technical level. I wouldn't go long unless it got back over delta neutral. Looks like a little bit of support at 89. Back above 90 could squeeze things. Jesus. Netflix looks terrible. 30-day skews up pretty hard. So short term. Ivy's kind of blown out. It's a little bit of, yeah, a little bit of interest out to like 95. There's definitely some buyers coming in. It's just the downside's a bit slippery still. I probably wait till I started to see Vega neutral coming down. It started to here, but then it slipped again on Friday. So short sellers were starting to come in, like short put sellers. It was finding a floor, but then it slipped again, which I'm not sure is a great sign. I definitely wouldn't go long on it unless it got back above delta neutral, and even then, I'd be suspicious unless delta neutral's back above VN. Like this is what stability looks like, right? Big spread between VN DN, right? This is not stable. And volatility increasing to the downside on equities is never a good sign. Big moves in Vana below like 80. Well, back below 90 and then below 85.80. Upside 92.50 out to like 95, but then not much volatility is going to fall off on an upside move unless it like somehow pushes out back out above 95 again. Puts some out of the money, some in the money. Seems mixed. Calls are largely out of the money, so probably sold. So still a lot of call selling, and that's because that That VRP is huge, especially like 30 days out, like out here in the Feb contracts. You can see that call OI out here has been increasing pretty steadily. It's kind of huge now, like 13,000 OI. Um, Probably this like 92.50 on the weekly as well. So those are probably sold calls. Um, I would say that the call buying is probably like 89, 87, maybe out to 90. Everything above that's probably sold. So we could look out there and see what that looks like. Yeah. Yeah, this is pretty flat out to the upside into Feb. Some of this might be call buying, like 105, 130, 95, maybe. Yeah, so this might stay in this like kind of choppy range for a little while. There's a bump in event vol coming up. Probably is that with earnings? Earnings is on the 20th. I guess you could go long and hope the volatility continues to increase into earnings, but again, I think it's just really risky sub delta neutral. Even above it's kind of questionable. Above 95 maybe would be a little bit more bullish or a better confirm. Love the 3D chart. It's kind of wild. Demand's pretty split. I mean, obviously spot's closer to the downside vol, but there's definitely some call interest out here. It kind of fades in the like much nearer term. Like downside demand is a little bit more persistent further out. So I would say it's weighted like on the front it's weighted to the upside a bit, but over time the downside. All right. We got like 30 more minutes. Give me some tickers. I'm probably going to spend like 10 minutes talking about SPX too. Fubo. Fubo had like some interesting option shit pop up. There's some demand out on the 2027 leap. And it finally hit that like sub 264 level where I wanted it to fall. I would still like to see a 228 test, but it does seem to be recovering a little bit here. I don't think Fubo options data is really all that important besides the bump in the longer dated like some of these strikes. Some of this like $10 strike fell off, but still quite a lot of OI out on the Jan 2027 15 or $12 strike. That seems to be persistently increasing. Same with the 5. A little bit falling off at the 4. Some near term buying at the $3 strike, 350. It's a decent amount of OI there. At the money OI is spiking. Yeah, that could really go either way. There's definitely support at 250, so that could drive a push back out to like 4. 3 and 350 would squeeze. Vana picks up to about $4 or $5. So yeah, I would say this could probably turn around. I don't know if I'd want anything short term on it, but it does seem to be picking up some. Beginning of Feb doesn't look great, but Jan OPEX looks kind of fun, maybe. Van Wall picks up for 123. Is that the next earnings? Maybe. That's kind of shit. Still don't. Gamma's kind of turning around a little bit, but Delta's not picking up. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, this isn't a bad price, but any thoughts on silver or gold for this year? I just said if geopolitical stability continues to break down, then like gold and silver are going to be beneficiaries. All precious metals and probably oil as well, especially with Iran and Venezuela now. Jimmy, looks like it ran a little bit. Got some like ETF FTD covering. Looks like correlation with XRT picked up over the last like 3 days. Now it's starting to fade again. BTC correlations flat. And Vol's at about average, so not super impressive. There is still some covering going on as of Friday, though. Liquidity is a little bit thin, so it might continue to get some upside. I don't know if XRT correlation is going to pick up from here. The consumer stuff wasn't very great, so. Hmm. GME QQQ. Tech bounced back on Friday. Had a couple weak days relative to like Dow and the S&P, but looks like it snapped back Friday. Gamma picked up and Delta fell off, but options more bought to the upside. Some stability at 627, support at 25. Next push out would be like 30. Doesn't look bad. Gamma Max is 637. Still been kind of weak since like November though. Not a lot of aggressiveness from the put sellers there. Big spread between Gamma Max and Vega Neutral. Gamma falls off pretty quickly to the downside, but is moderately like 2 billion. So a little bit of support at spot, not a ton of support. Probably keep an eye on GN. Gamma's just thin. Maybe that's the problem. It's struggling so much to get near like significant upside. Yeah. Slight uptick in event vol. Big bump in IV into tech earnings, obviously. It doesn't look fantastic. Seems like it could probably pretty easily fall back again. 627. So it closed just a bit below support at 27. I don't know. I guess I'd watch for it to reject off of 27. If it breaks out to the upside, it's got room to move like 30, 31. But a failure at 27 would be pretty bearish. Pull back to like 21, maybe lower. Tesla. Tesla finally got a little bounce. Delta's not picking up on it yet, though. Looks like it needs to push out above 450 to start to get more bullish. A little bit of resistance there with support at 40. Skews picking up on the 10 and 30. So probably start to see, yeah, HV10 starting to pick up. IV10 hasn't turned around yet, though. Probably back above 50. HV30 still kind of doesn't look great. The OPEX expiry vol is pretty flat out to like 480. So if it does break 450, there's a lot of room for it to move up. Could definitely move out to 480, maybe higher, maybe back to 5. Gamma's a little steeper on the downside move. Yeah, I would want to see it above 450. Or do you? I don't know if I have NOV on here. We do. I mean, the options chain on NOV is really not going to tell us too much, but there's been a lot of buying out at like $25. So some of the expected repricing kind of bifurcating the options chain between the 14 and 25 strikes. And now we're starting to get some coalescence around $18. This could probably, I mean, continue to move up. There's definitely interest, 18, 20, 25. Obviously a lot of this depends on, whatever's going on in Venezuela, but like the skew 60, skew 90 is still moving higher, flattening. So people very bullish, 60, 90 days out. The 30, 10, not so much. So probably waiting. I would say SLB, HAL, Nove, all of those like oil field services, oil infrastructure companies. Like they've already priced in a bunch with like everything that's been going on in Venezuela, but like probably won't price in more until there's more certainty. Yeah, I heard Houston Wade's a kitty diddler, but pretty sure that stream's already gone. So time to short SPX? No. Hmm. We'll get to SPX. Molina's a big beneficiary of ACA tax credits being. It's not. Thought it was. Could you DM me a link for it? I'll get rid of it. Yeah, I kind of talked about the healthcare companies earlier. Satine, also Centene Corporation, Molina. I think both of them benefit a lot from uh, like the ACA credits. HCA and UNH, just because of their size, will also probably benefit. Oh, on his channel? Oh, I don't give a fuck. I guess I could try. It seems like a lot of work. I have no idea how to do that. SoFi? What's SoFi going to benefit from? No, I don't care about SoFi. SoFi looks boring as shit. ASML? Hmm. ASML could be interesting. Obviously, I don't think tensions between the US and Europe would be beneficial for the stock, but ASML uh, cutting off America in any kind of like economic sanction would be really interesting, given that they have a absolute monopoly on lithography. What does the leap interest tell us on Fubo? I don't know. Could just be repositioning. Could be option sellers. RCAT? What about it? I mean, it looks like it blew out its chain. I don't have options data for it. Hal, Schlumberger, all the same deal. NOV. Yeah, we can take a look at Apple. Mm, getting a little bit of support Thursday, Friday. Delta's not turning around. Neither is Gamma. But some support at 260, 255. Below that, things kind of fall off a cliff. I'd say near term, skew's been flattening on the 30 and the 10. IV30 still coming down a little bit though. IV10 too. It's definitely still a little bit more demand to the downside, but people are getting into some bullish positioning for earnings, it looks like. So maybe that'll start to flatten out the decline. Gamma still falls off really, really sharply down to like 230. So I would say if support isn't gained at 260, it probably just continues to dump. I know earnings for Apple are coming up soon though. Earnings for Apple are on Jan 29th. So that might help bump near term IV, which could create a little bit of support. DSX. $1 shipping companies. I'd rather not. Um, AKAM. So Akami. Delta's ticking up a little bit over the last couple weeks. I don't really know if things are more bought. Price seems still relatively stable here. Consolidating though. There's like a wedge. I don't know if that would break out to the upside, but if it did, I guess there's room to move up to like 95, maybe 100. They'd also have earnings coming up mid-Feb. Upside demand's kind of picking up into like Feb. Oh, but Gamma, yeah, like 90, well, like 97.50, I guess. If it breaks out to the upside, you could just like you could probably just draw the wedge on that. It seems pretty easy. Breakout would be at like 90, 89.50, 90 to 89.50. I don't love like. I mean, the options trade on this is pretty thin. MSTR. Ooh, Gamma Max is starting to pick up. Looks like D and GN are fairly stable. Big and neutral staying low. Um, Delta's still continuing to fall off of this. Gamma dumped on Friday. So people still just chasing weekly options. I would say the range is pretty thin. Big resistance at 160, support at 155. Out above 160. There might be more room to move, but there's very little delta anywhere on the chain. Unless you get like way the fuck out to the upside. That's probably all sold calls. Probably check the OI. Yeah, it still looks like people selling way out of the money calls on it. And buying at the money puts. So I would say kind of boring. Probably still stuck in a fairly narrow range. Still skewed a little bit to the downside. But then, like, as we get out past the leap expiry, things get a little bit better into Fab. Still a lot of in the money puts being added. 160, a lot at 160. Not so much in the short term though. Calls inputs. Calls fell off there. Yeah, it looks like a bunch of the at the money weeklies for the leap expiry, or the at the money leaps, and just out of the money leap calls drop some OI, and then a lot of the OI shifted higher out to like 172 to 184. So these calls are probably sold out here. Yeah, it doesn't look particularly bullish, and it looks also kind of range bound. SOC. That looks kind of like it's starting to get interesting. I don't like Gexa being positive. It's usually not a good sign. But it looks like there's a lot of out of the money interest going on. So gamma building to the upside. I don't know if there's a ton of delta out there. 1750 puts. Skew's been relatively flat. Skew 60 picked up quite a lot. Back to 0. Although that might have just been the expiration. Looks like short term there's some interest out to like $12. But 11's upside resistance, but I guess I could push out further than that. Maybe 12. Obviously getting support at, you know, at the failure of GN's slightly bullish. GN DN kind of neck and neck here. Although gamma neutral still moving up a little. DN2. Maybe worth going long above $10. I mean, Gamma Max moving that far away from spot's usually not a great sign. As you can see, that tends to kind of coincide with the price dropping. But I do like that, GN's back above VN now. Things do look more stable. Kinder Morgan looks awful. It just doesn't look very interesting at all. Like, it definitely looks like SLB, Halliburton, and NOV. did a lot better on the Venezuela news. Campbell's? I mean, it's real cheap. I think the dividend, or the yield on cost is like almost at 6% down here. It's like the cheapest it's been since like 08, 09. Time to short SPX. We'll take a look in a minute. Earning equity is looking good for a long entry in this environment. Well, health services could be interesting with the ACA tax credits getting moved over to the Senate. But if the Senate knocks it down, any near-term gains will get rocked. Producer manufacturing, probably good. I mean, everybody's going to want to ramp up gold and silver mining and copper mining at a minimum. So that tends to be really good for companies like Cat and Deere. Oil companies would probably be a big beneficiary of increased geopolitical tensions. Utilities might continue to do well. I mean, obviously, there's a lot of power demand from AI infrastructure rollout. So, thanks for covering SLS last week. I sold most at the top and got CCs out on my long-term position. Nice, dude. China says they've cracked UEV. Oh, nice. Maybe somebody else start making video cards again. RDW looks like calls repositioned rolled. No idea. It's like Delta flattened out in a weird way. That's probably wrong. I don't know what they would have rolled to. Doesn't look like anything's really changed on the options chain at all. I'm kind of just a bit blown out here. Stay the effort Manhattan project, and they want no dependence on NVIDIA. I go to a few months before they reach production velocity. For UEV, I wouldn't say a few months, probably a couple of years. I'll look at Rivian. Rivian looks like shit. DDD doesn't really have enough of an options chain to confirm anything, but the failure there looks bad. Why are all these stocks suck? Hertz? Also looks lame. LAC looks like it's topping out. Delta's falling off the chain. What the fuck is AI? Oil, utilities, healthcare, well, health services. Um, Maybe some shit in like process industries, industrial services. Bullish on a swing trade for what? C3 AI? The fuck is that their ticker? It's just AI. They don't do anything. You know that company is just like fraudulent, right? I can't believe it's still worth $14. Charge point looks like crap. I think the problem with a lot of the charging infrastructure companies is the cost to set up charging stations and keep them operational is significantly more than the recouped amount of profits in the short term. So like the window for profitability for those companies is like 10 years out from new units. Tomorrow, big red. I don't know. There's a lot of shit for the market to digest, which generally means that the market will just fucking do nothing and wait till there's something that breaks one way or the other. But I think we have some data this week. Um, I know a bunch of the like BLS stuff is getting delayed because they don't want to tell us the real data. So um, that's probably something to consider. Obviously, global credit conditions are going to be an issue, but we get CPI on Tuesday. Um, PPI Wednesday. We're going to get some existing home sales from December, which are either expected to pick up or fall slightly. And then I think we get some like British and German GDP stuff. We're going to get import export prices from November. Friday, we get industrial production, which will probably be fairly like we definitely want to see industrial production picking up because like producer manufacturing, like the whole sector has been running like crazy. But yeah, let's take a look at SPX, I guess. I mean, I'm gonna write up SPX tonight also, but looks like some buying picked up on the monthly chain on Friday. Gamma Max pushed back out above VN. Delta fell off on Friday, but buying increased, picked up a little bit of positive gamma. We're still kind of pinned to GN though. There's very little gamma supportive of spot, even with the higher close, only like 23. Was it like 20? Well, not even 23 billion, 20.5 billion. And then the flip is down at like 69.20, which isn't very far from spot. However, gamma doesn't fall off really steeply, so I would say that we're fairly stable here. Need to look at the 0 DT. Yeah, we're kind of stable between like 69.50, 69.75. I guess you can push out and squeeze, so it calls the upside like 69.85. Unless we open below 50 tomorrow, which would be kind of crazy. If we open below 50 or 30 tomorrow, then things get pretty bearish. Otherwise, I would say shit looks fairly stable. Pretty high gamma over the next couple of expirations into CPI. And the OPEX expiration. However, remember that like correlations just rocketing down right now as we get closer to the leap expiry, but when all those leaps fall off and reposition, correlation can shift really hard. So um this is all the equity leaps that are expiring now, which is like most of the equity options. So Jan OPEX tends to be a pretty big deal. Also, we've got to keep an eye on like cash, like short-term cash liquidity, because we've still been seeing like fairly wide spreads in SOFR IORB. Now, like Friday, SOFR fell below IORB, so things are doing great over there right now. But as cash demand picks up this week, we have SLD on Wednesday, and then OPEX Friday, the end of SLD on Monday. We might start to see that spread get blown apart again, and how much it gets blown apart is going to be important. But I would say probably Monday, Tuesday at least things look fairly stable on the SPX. I would be surprised if we saw anything huge. Tuesday's a little little weaker on the support side. Maybe they're expecting inflation to come in slightly higher for PPI CPI. Seems like most of the supportive positioning here is just for tomorrow. But yeah, any lower open under 69.50 or under 69.30 would be really bad. But if we open flat, I would say we either stay flat all day, or we could maybe push up a little. Supreme Court's on Wednesday too. Yeah, yeah, that'll be interesting also. Supreme Court's Wednesday. Is that official? Like that's when the decision's going to be on Wednesday? Do we know? Because it was also supposed to be last week. No one's selling vol anymore. It's sad. Well, it's just not worth selling a lot of. I guess we'll take a look actually at options macro, see if that's actually true. It does look like put leverage continued to fall. Yeah. Yeah, put sellers are just backing off. And puts got cheaper too with Friday's move up. Calls didn't pick up a lot in price though. Call leverage is still rising. So we got like at the money to just above spot. Call leverage still picking up a little. Um anything but above like 2.4% above spot, call leverage fell. And then net leverage across like, 10% on either side of spot fell. So, I mean, I guess, total leverage down. So the move and put leverage was fairly significant because the call leverage was not. Hmm. It was speculated to be last week. The SE never outright said it was just an opinions day. New seems to be reporting Wednesday as confirmed tariff. Okay. Well, that'll matter, obviously. That's a big pin for rates at the top end of the curve. So Upstart broke above 50, but it got rejected. So I'm not really sure it looks all that bullish. Skew 10 and 30 picked back up, but not very much on Friday. Things are still skewed to the downside, and event vol rises into the back of the week. So, yeah, not a lot of range priced in for tomorrow, which would mean that lower open would likely get sold and be mean reverting. So if we did fall, like open below 50, fall to 30, we'd probably bounce back towards 50 during the intraday. Unless the market just takes the weekend news really, really badly and we get a big move overnight. This is just the next day they release opinions. They never announce what opinions it will be in advance. Okay. So it's not confirmed. Just likely. CPB selling CSP is worth it and just enjoy the dividend if assigned. Yeah, possibly. I mean, if the yield on the puts is enough. I mean, technical support is a bit lower, around $25. But I could see there being some stability here. Campbell's is trading at like price to earnings at like 13x with a 6% dividend, and their payout ratio is only 80%. So profitability has been solid. I mean, it's generally like 6 to 7% net margin across like the last several quarters. Margins have fallen though, like 24, 25. They've not been doing well recently. So I'd like to see their like year over year net margins move up. I would say a lot of their products are not at price points where they can really benefit from like nobody's gonna buy Campbell's soup at $3, right? So they're getting kind of out competed by people who have can sell higher price goods and lean on like the uptick in consumer inflation. Similar to how the market was setting up for a big leg down weeks before he did the Liberation Day reg. Maybe we'll see positioning coming ahead of the SC decision. Possibly, yeah. I mean, I definitely want to see. We still see some demand for like the 30-day puts and 10-day, but it definitely lessened on Friday with the NFP data. And like non-farms were down, right? But they didn't increase the chance of a Fed cut. Like they weren't down a lot. And then unemployment fell, but it didn't really take much for unemployment to fall. And I'm not really sure I believe either of those. Also, earnings picked up slightly. So, I mean, it was probably the best possible print for bulls. Like, employment didn't fall too much. Unemployment, like total payrolls didn't fall too much. And then unemployment picked up, or went down rather, and then wages picked up. Participation rate fell though, so labor pool's a little thinner. Seasonal unemployment dropped a bit too. I was actually kind of surprised with UMISH. UMISH was a bit weird. Inflation expectations went up a lot for like the 5 year, like up to 3.4. But consumer sentiment picked up, which was strange. So maybe people are just getting used to getting overcharged for everything. Anyway, I think that about covers everything. I'll cover the rest in like Pickles picks tonight. How's the padding on the front? Yeah, see, HV's still falling. So either we're gonna see IV fall below HV, or we need to start seeing HV turn around, and narrow that spread, because this is still positive. Like even after Friday, this is still positive. Like two and change points, and so there's still some viability on selling short dated puts, um, and also quite a lot of premium out here on the 30-day. So um, there's a lot of puts are kind of overpriced relative to their performance, and people are going to want to sell them. It's just there's macro risk. Oh, yeah, I'll have the rest out tonight with Pickles picks. Thank you guys for tuning in. I'll catch you later. Peace.